Let's enter a new dawn for the Green Lantern Corps with a new status quo and a new sense of hope. Is everybody ready to settle down in a new era of peace and relaxation at last? Well, not if the Sorrow Lantern has anything to say about it. Let's talk about it in our review of Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum #1 from DC Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum #1 from DC Comics and writer Jeremy Adams. We begin with a brief prologue at the Library of Forever. A lowly librarian whiles away his days organizing books older than Earth itself when Nathan Broom, also known as the Sorrow Lantern, arrives looking for a special piece of glass used for reading. It looks like a jewel and a magnifying glass and maybe something a little bit extra. Elsewhere, writer Jeremy Adams sets up the new status quo to tell you who's who, what's what, and what's going on. The Green Lantern Corps hustles and bustles as they work to get everything back in order. The Lanterns relocate the replacement Green Lantern battery from Earth to Oa to restore power. Jadestone, the Amazo robot infected by the power of the Starheart and former member of the Task Force 7 group, assumes a permanent role as protector of the battery now that it's located on Oa instead of Earth. The new Guardians, who look a lot like the old Guardians, are no longer in charge, but they remain on Oa as advisors to the Corps. Teen Lantern and Ellie, if you remember, is John Stewart's construct of his deceased sister, acts as a technical expert overseeing the new battery's installation. And Jessica Cruz has now accepted the role as the leader of the council on Oa in place of the Guardians. Now with the prologue, the preface, and a lot of the status quo setup out of the way, that's when the story truly kicks in. Jessica Cruz is giving a rally speech to the assembled Green Lantern. When Jessica's words of encouragement reach a fever pitch, Guy Gardner crashes through the ceiling in a battle with Nathan Broom, also known as the Sorrow Lantern. Broom eventually gets away when the other Lanterns join in to try and support Guy, and we find out that he has a book with him when he escapes. The book is a strange little tome that has the Green Lantern symbol embossed on its cover. When the dust settles and the fight is done, Guy sheepishly explains the book Sorrow Lantern stole was an older version of the Book of Oa the previous Guardians had since updated to the current volume. The book has a special set of instructions that, when viewed through a special piece of glass, provides the plans to create a new Power Lantern battery. If the Sorrow Lantern gets the glass, reads the book, and gathers the components to build a lantern for himself, he would have the power to spread his fractured brand of sorrow throughout the galaxy. The issue ends with the quest to get the components before Sorrow Lantern or witness the end of all things. Hey, do you want to be part of our growing community and get exclusive perks? Become a channel member today. By becoming a member, you'll support a channel you love, which is ours because everybody loves it, but you'll also gain access to special badges, emojis, and members-only content. Click the join button below to become part of our family and help us create more of the content you enjoy. Now let's get back to the review. And that's the issue, so let's talk about impressions and what worked and what didn't. First things first, big, bold adventures are few and far between at DC, but Jeremy Adams aims to close that gap in Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum #1. He leans heavily on everything that works in the mainline Green Lantern title, which he also writes. He sets up a strong premise with a clear goal, stakes, an interesting ensemble cast, which is very important here, and gobs of snappy personality in every scene. If you're looking for somebody who kind of gets what it means to write a superhero comic that's fun and adventuresome and really gets you hooked, Jeremy Adams is one of one or two writers at DC right now that has that formula nailed down pat. Let's switch gears a second and talk about the art. V. Ken Marion has the right eye to match the visual personality of each character with Adams' peppy script. The character acting captures the spirit of adventure the central quest calls for, right? Because this is a big, fun adventure that we're trying to achieve here, and the art sort of reflects that. The action looks great. You don't get a lot of it, but you get enough of it to get a feel of what's going on. And the overall visual experience is bold. Lots of big visuals, lots of exciting things that are happening in the panel, and it captures your attention. That said, Romulo Fajardo Jr.'s color choices, who we love Romulo Fajardo Jr., he does a lot of great stuff, and a lot of the stuff we reviewed are first rate. The color choices look great, but the blocky digital application lacks the contour and smoothness we'd want to see in a high quality comic. So let's talk about positives and negatives, starting with what's great about Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum #1. If you're looking for a big adventure-focused story, Jeremy Adams ticks all the right boxes. You get a serious threat, a clear goal, an endearing cast of characters, and that ensemble element is pretty important if you're talking about a group or a team book, and the promise of surprises, because there have been hints about who is helping Sorrow Lantern in the previous title. More comic writers at the Big Two should take note of what Adams has done here, and with last week's Aquaman #1, which I also liked a heck of a lot. Adams has the formula down. You need to pay attention to the formula because it works. More Big Two writers should be using the formula of how to cover all the bases and give you a fun, exciting adventure. So let's talk about what's not great about Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum #1. This isn't a perfect comic, a couple foibles. They're not big foibles, but they're noticeable, and that's the only thing that's really preventing this from getting a perfect score. The two in particular. First, Guy's explanation for why he has an older copy of the Book of Oa makes sense to lay the foundation of the story. You need that motivation and rationale to get it going, but it doesn't fit Guy as a character. He's the type of Lantern who'd mock you as a nerd for obsessing over an old book. That doesn't make sense for him at all. So it's there, but it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't really fit Guy as a person. Second, Hal gives an explanation for relocating the green power battery from Earth to Oa, away from the power of the green. It feels like a status quo return for its own sake rather than a good reason. Hal hand waves the rationale with an offhand comment about showing the galaxy the Lanterns are back in business and they're ready to take on all comers. It just sounds very rah-rah, sounds great. But that show could have easily come from Earth, where the green could protect the battery from future attacks. Again, these are minor quibbles, but you get a little bit of a side-eye when you read those lines, and you could dismiss them out of hand without too much trouble. But still, they're noticeable, and it's like, that's not quite a great explanation, and you kind of have to go with it. So final thoughts, what do we think about Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum #1? It's a bright, bold start to a new quest for the recently reassembled Green Lantern Corps. Jeremy Adams efficiently establishes the new status quo before sending the Lanterns off to save the galaxy with a spirit of high adventure, and that's really key here. You don't get much of that. In this case, you get it in spades, which is a big positive. Plus, V. Ken Marion's inspired artwork looks great. That said, there are a few minor quibbles in the story and art that prevent this issue from earning our absolute top marks, but you're still going to love it. Therefore, Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum #1 earns an 8.8 out of 10. This is another strong debut issue from Jeremy Adams, and we certainly hope other writers at DC follow suit. But what do you think? Are you liking what Jeremy Adams is doing with the Green Lanterns, which may or may not be your cup of tea, but maybe it should be? Leave a thumbs up if you found this review helpful, and drop a comment below with which Green Lantern title that's either currently running or upcoming, because I think there are some other titles in the mix, is going to be your most anticipated. Also, remember to click on the link in the description to read the written review. Check out the variant covers and preview pages, and buy this comic to help support the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated, of course. And don't forget to click on subscribe down below if you're watching this on YouTube. So thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.